Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Philosophy for Philistines channel. I wanted to do a follow-up on yesterday's podcast about Elon Musk having taken control of Twitter and making a commitment to be a free speech absolutist. In response to the reactions I received from my podcast and other remarks made on social media, I've designed a little experiment, so I'm inviting you to follow along with that experiment. I've entitled it An Academic Experiment in How Totalitarian Social Theories Are Infiltrating Our Society Through the Academy. Note that the howling left demands social conformity by constantly harping on the threat to social order posed by alt-right ideology without ever being able to provide a definition of precisely who they are referring to by the alt-right and what they mean by alt-right. As a classical liberal in the English sense, I find the far left's reaction to be very telling. So here's an experiment for my readers and listeners to try. Type postmodernism and critical theory along with the name of any university in the Western world of your choice into a search engine of your choice. Then watch what that search engine will find. Virtually to an academy, cultural Marxist critical theory and postmodernism are being taught as viable and sensible socio-political theories. Then type fascism or Nazism into the same search engine, along with any academy which comes to mind, to discover how many are teaching actual far-right totalitarian ideologies as viable social political theories rather than as disastrous experiments in totalitarian tyranny. I cannot find any academy teaching them as viable social political theories, but I invite you to share with me links to your searches if you are able to find any academy which is doing so. Therefore, postmodernism and critical theory are the actual threats that we need to be speaking about. Any sane, tax-paying citizen ought to be demanding that their legislators immediately cease to fund such courses and ensure that tenure is refused to any professor who teaches such dangerous neo-Marxist ideologies as viable social political options to our youth. By this I mean that it ought to be fully encouraged to discuss and debate these ideologies, but never to present them as a solution to constitutionally limited government, the rule of law, and individual freedom and personal autonomy. For to do so is to undermine the underpinning philosophical foundation of Western culture, namely the sovereign and accountable individual creating in the divine image, which is the bedrock for a free society. Let good ideas succeed in the greatest market of all, the free market of open debate, where truly hideous ideas can be exposed for being the toxic ideologies that they are. Every social collectivist society has invariably resulted in oppression and tyranny, featuring uniformity of thought, where dissenting opinions were crushed under the societal desire to create absolute social compliance and homogeneity. This is known by many names in various parts of the world. Sometimes it is known as the nail which sticks up must be pounded down, crab in a bucket syndrome, tall poppy syndrome, or janteloven in Scandinavia. No matter what we may call it, they all refer to the same mind worm, namely to shut up and comply, because you're only a cog in a big machine. I, for one, abhor with a gut-wrenching, flaming passion such cloying demands for marching in jack-booted lockstep like so many blind sheep being herded by our leading psychopaths to ruin. And I quote from Yus Merleau in his book, The Rape of the Mind. The totalitarian systems of the 20th century represent a kind of collective psychosis. Whether gradually or suddenly, reason and common human decency are no longer possible in such a system. There is only a pervasive atmosphere of terror and projection of the enemy, imagined to be in our midst. Thus society turns on itself, urged on by the ruling authorities, like Justin Trudeau and his pathological government. And again, from Carl Jung in his book After the Catastrophe, the phenomenon we have witnessed in Germany was nothing less than an outbreak of epidemic insanity. No one knew what was happening to him, least of all the Germans, who allowed themselves to be driven to the slaughterhouse by their leading psychopaths like hypnotized sheep. I choose not to be a hypnotized sheep. In fact, I don't even know if it's a matter of choice. For me, it's a matter of it's my nature. I abhor the need for blind social conformity. And the remarks that I received, based on hoping at least that Musk will return common sense and open discourse to the platform of Twitter, and the outrage that I read from the left, who can't define anything that they claim that they're afraid of, they're perfect representations of these two pathologies that I just quoted from Yus Merleau and Carl Jung. Please, individuate and think for yourself. We are facing a crisis such as we have not faced since the Second World War. God bless you. There are some things to think and pray about. Have a wonderful day.